Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today is a solo episode on the topic of coaching kids in youth sports. This is more than just coaching youth sports. It's about raising kids to be adults. It's about how to live life. Too often we complain about the state of youth sports. You can change that. I did my part in the local community, and it's an interesting story, and there's a surprise twist at the end. If you like the episode and the message, please share it with others who coach and those who can influence them. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's quote has been attributed to a few different people. Sports do not build character, they reveal it. Today, we're going to talk about building character. I always thought playing a sport for the purpose of playing a game is too small a purpose. If I'm going to spend my time coaching kids and giving up hours of my life, I was going to teach them how to live life. And the game was nothing more than a platform to learn those lessons. It's said that sports create character. However, I've also heard it said sports reveal character. Over the years, I've coached from t-ball at age 4 to 5 all the way up through high school varsity soccer and also robotics. Most of my time was with boys, and boys and girls need different coaching encouragement. It was never my idea to coach. However, I can't sit and watch, especially when it's done inefficiently. I gotta tell you, watching a t-ball game with 4 and 5-year-olds is a struggle. So I'd volunteer to help, only to have leaders drop out and me end up being in charge. Thankfully, in my early years, there was some really great and awesome coaches who taught me the right way to lead and how to inspire kids. I kept building on their lessons. Because I was the coach, I also was in control of my time. I could pick when practices were, and I knew the game schedules well in advance. I could also reschedule based on my calendar. This really helped me to control my time and allow me to be with both of my kids and not have to choose between them. One of the things I've learned in coaching is there are multiple aspects to the game, and there's a ton of different parts that need to be coached. There's the kids on the field playing the game. There's managing all the kids sitting on the bench. There's managing the parents, managing the umpires, even managing the coaches of the other team. Each is different, and it's a lot going on at the same time. Over the years, I've built systems of how to win based on losing. It seemed every team I would play against would have one advantage. Maybe it was a trick, maybe it was something that they excelled in, but they all seemed to practice one aspect of the game. What I did was take all those advantages and train my kids to be great at all of them. We created systems with trigger points. much like building a habit from Charles Duhigg. When X occurs, do Y. For example, after I brush my teeth, I'm going to floss one tooth. It's the anchor point is something you already do, and then you add a new habit. We'll get more into this. Does it work? Yes. I've taken teams of kids and created winning teams. In middle school, we went from about 1-11 to 10-1, winning the division. What's the secret? Half of it is mindset. The belief you can win and learning the systems to employ to make it happen. I will take mindset over skill any day because it's easy to work on skill. It's hard to change mindsets. I've noticed great coaches and teams will focus on building the right culture and finding the right fit of athlete over the skill of the player. Sure, you need to be good, but it's more than just skill. One of the first things that I do when I take over a team is to understand where the kids are at. Too often we look at life through our lens, the lens of an adult with years of experience. But here I had a group of kids who had a very different lens. How did I learn this? Through a survey. It's amazing what kids will write down when asked. And yes, sometimes you get very little, but one major point came through across 90% of the surveys. The coaches were yelling at the kids, and it caused fear. It was something they were worried about. What you may not know about me is that I have a loud voice. I would sometimes hear complaints because the kids 3 soccer fields over can hear my voice. For some reason, the kids I'm coaching can't. So I had a problem now. Was I the one causing fear with my loud voice? So I dug in and I started having conversations with the kids. What I learned is that they wanted to be yelled at to motivate them. But what they were getting is coaches yelling at them unfairly. One kid gets yelled at for something while all the other kids get ignored for doing the same thing. Or being yelled at for not doing something that they were never taught to do. Many scenarios come up, and if the kids have never been taught how you expect them to behave a certain way, they won't. My kids who club sports also didn't have the freedom to do what they thought was right, or to take chances, because they'd get yelled at or benched for making a mistake. I did none of this. As you've heard before, the philosophy's always, we win or we learn. There is no failure. I want to encourage my kids to take chances and try something out and then improve upon it. One of the teams I coached was a middle school soccer team with 25 kids. It was a no-cut team and only 11 get to play at a time, which means I have 14 on the bench. And the goal was that everyone should get playing time. The cool thing was over 80% of the team scored a goal, which is hard when 50% of them play defense. I can't tell you how many times parents of the other team would compliment us. Not only did we win, but everyone got a chance to play. We didn't follow the old adage of only the older kids or the better kids play while everyone else sits on the bench and watches. I want to take a moment on this part. One thing I have learned is you need to give everyone a chance. What I saw on the practice field didn't always translate to the game field. Sure, you may have great ball skills, but what happens when you're under pressure? What happens when you're up against an opponent who's bigger than you? Some kids just don't put in the effort until it matters. You have to watch what they do, not what you think they will do or what they say they will do. Some kids run in, some kids hang back. Too often we create a view of how things should be instead of allowing them to be and then adjusting to what they naturally do in gameplay. As to scoring, nothing changes a kid's attitude more than their first goal. If you can help a kid to see success, it lights up their world. I can't tell you how many kids I saw bring a whole new level of playing ability after their first goal. Isn't that the way we are as adults? Start having success and you have more. It's getting through the fear and also knowing you can do this. Trying to manage so many kids gets hard. And we already know they don't want to get yelled at for the wrong reasons. Think about this. I've got 25 boys to manage. How hard is it when you have a couple in the back seat of your car? The answer to the problem was create a system. So we created one. One for mindset and one for gameplay. For mindset, we had an acronym. GRRR. because that's how most of us parents feel when we have to deal with screaming, squirming kids. It's also how they feel when they're being poked and prodded by each other. By creating expectations and not only talking about them, but modeling them, the kids knew what to expect, and instead of me having to manage them, they started to manage each other. Do you have a value statement in your company? Does it state how you behave? Does anyone even read it, let alone implement it? We've had episodes on creating culture and how to model it. So, GRRR stands for grace, respect, responsibility, and reverence. Remember, this isn't just about playing a game, it's about learning how to behave. At every practice and in the emails to parents, we explained these words and what they meant. And it was a conversation, because who wants to hear the coach drone on and on when you could be kicking a ball? Timing is everything, and I'll get into the systems of how we run practices and why in a moment. The way this is taught is through conversations and modeling. How can I expect the kids to do this if the coaches don't? The process is to ask kids what they think about what the words mean to them, then to show them examples of good and also bad behavior, and to keep repeating it and modeling it. What does grace mean to you? Can you give me an example? Here's what grace means to me. It means not saying, "Put me in, coach," which happens all the time when you have kids on the bench, but rather saying, "Put John in because he hasn't had a chance to play." Grace is give no foul, take no foul. It's forgiveness. Grace is letting go when the kid next to you has poked you for the 100th time and you've had enough. Now, before we get to the other words, the way this is modeled is simply by asking the questions when things aren't going the way you want. Are you showing grace? The kids are always yelling, "Put me in." Instead of arguing or ignoring them, just ask, are you showing grace? All the energy leaves the conversation. And before long, the kids start pushing for each other instead of me having to deal with the issues. We also explain what grace is not, and we share bad examples. The first R is respect. What does that word mean? How do we show respect? Who do we show respect to? And then we define it. Respect for yourself, respect for your teammate, the other team, the equipment, your parents, the referee. What's a good example and what's a bad example? When someone screws up, how do we, with grace and respect, help them to improve? Again, when things are not as they should be, the question is simply, are you showing respect? Now, coaches, you have to model this one too. The kids can pick up a hypocrite in no time, and they listen to what you do, not what you say. The next R, responsibility. Again, we ask, what does it mean? Who has to take responsibility? It means that you're at practice on time with the proper equipment. I don't want to hear your mother didn't bring your shin guards or your water bottle. You are responsible. Responsibility is knowing the rules, knowing your position and where you should be on the field. You are responsible for helping improve your teammate and doing it with grace and respect. Every practice we model the words, both right and wrong, because wrong can be funny with kids. We also have quotes that can help them remember. As iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. It's your responsibility to gracefully and respectfully help your team improve. How do you do that? How do we model it? What does good look like? What does bad look like? The last R is reverence. I've coached at both religious and secular programs. The goal here is that you are playing for something bigger than yourself. It's not about you. It's about the team, the school, the bigger organization, God. When kids showboat or make it about them, they quickly find a place on the bench. And I have kids come up to me and say, "Pull that kid off the field. He's not playing for the team, but for his glory." We don't need to preach with words. The goal is people should know your character by your actions on the field. Just like at work, managing people and attitudes is half the battle. If you can get everyone on the same page and with very little friction and conflict, life is so much easier. When everyone manages everyone else with simple questions that are not accusatory, like, are you taking responsibility? You don't have to worry about kids forgetting their stuff and it being my problem as the coach. They understand it's up to them and I don't need to yell about it. Mindset is everything. One of the first things I do is teach them they can be winners. As part of the survey, I ask how many games they think they can win this year. It helps to reveal where they are, and in today's world of trophies for everyone, they seem not to have the drive to say all of them. We have a simple quote: everything is possible for one who believes. If you don't believe, you're not going to win. You have to have that edge. When you're going for every 50-50 ball and every attempt at the goal, and that little bit of extra effort you need to stand up and give. When I taught in middle school, I had the same talent for the team that was 1-11 as I did for the one that was 10-1. The only difference was they knew they could win. They had systems in place that allowed them to do so. People like consistency, and they also want to have fun. Our practices are designed so everyone knows what's coming, why they are doing something, and it's also fun. If you tell the kids to run laps, their shoulders go down and they moan. If you tell them we're going to have a race, they're all ready to go, happy and smiles. They want to see if they can win. It's all in how you frame things. In this part, we're going to talk about practices and how to keep them moving and keep them fun. Why is it that we have coaches for the games that have relatively little importance? Most professional teams have a multitude of coaches and trainers, including managers. But for the game of life, we're expected to go it alone and not have help? That's crazy. I have coaches, trainers, mentors, masterminds, and many others who help me propel myself forward. For your life, I can help you find harmony in all the different areas and create that winning path that allows you to have the life of your dreams. Reach out. Let's start with a short chat to see if we're a good fit. It's Rocky@richersoul.com. If a bunch of kids playing a game can have a coach, why can't you? We usually let the kids start off with a couple minutes of goofing off as everyone arrives. It lets them to get out a little bit of energy. We start off with stretching, but not the boring kind. We use dynamic stretching because it's more fun and it also allows us to work on mindset. One of the stretches requires that at the end of the movement, the two players have to jump and bump into each other shoulder to shoulder. Now, mind you, a lot of times you get size mismatches between the kids. It puts a little extra fun and a little excitement into the warm-ups. Also, since these are the same warm-ups we use before gameplay, they're designed to look intimidating to the other team. Mindset works both ways. Can you build up your team while making the other team lose confidence? We'll talk more about game day in a moment. It also helps our players to get over the fear of getting hit. If you've ever watched the movie The Mighty Ducks, you might remember the scene where they tie the goalie to a goalpost and everyone shoots pucks on him to help him get over the fear of being hit by a puck. Remove the fear, build their confidence. After the warm-ups, I have the kids run the beep test, and we measure individual results and publish them. What gets measured gets improved. The beep test is basically running back and forth between two lines about 20 meters apart. It's timed, and as it progresses, the times get faster and faster, and the goal is to make it over the line before the beep. The explanation is the game of soccer, and for that matter, most sports require running. 20 meters is a play. How many plays can I count on you to do before you get tired? It's also a competition against yourself and your teammates to see who can do the most. There are standards, so it's objective, and we look to improve, to beat our own score. The kids know this, and they also know it's meaningful to the game. And because it's gamified, it's more fun. Every week, they know their individual number to beat, and they work to improve over the practice season to prove themselves that they can get better. It's not without a struggle, and I remember one of the boys who had been at 60 runs for a couple of weeks. And I asked him, "Can you improve?" He said, "No, coach, I can only do 60. I asked again, I'm like, "You can't do more?" He's like, "No, I can't do more." The third time, I changed my question. I said, "Are you telling me you can't get to 61? You can't do one more?" And he finally says, "Yeah, I can do one more." Do you know what happened? Do you know how many he did? 70. Why? Because he had a mental block. And once he broke through the mental block, he knew more was possible. What mental blocks hold you back? It was a fun conversation afterwards with asking him how he could possibly get to 70 when he told me he could only do 60 and barely 61. That's a lesson that's going to stick with him for a long time. And I know in talking to his parents much later, they told me they see a different boy in his ability to do more than he thinks is possible. Now, at this point of the practice, the kids are tired and they want to rest. They've just been running pretty much nonstop, full out. It's the perfect time for conversations around grace, respect, responsibility, and reverence, about how we behave as a team. It's time to allow them to energize and shift from physical to mental energy. Next up are the drills. We start with individual ball drills and then we move to group drills. The key is to only do a drill for about 10 minutes and move on. The variety keeps things moving and kids don't get bored and complacent. I've also found that when you run drills, if you can give players a target to compete for, they're more willing to put in effort. No one wants to do anything they don't see a purpose in. Distance or height targets do that. Being able to kick a ball over a backstop or to hit a goalpost provides that. Maybe it's shooting a basket at a distance. You've got to figure it out for the sport that you're coaching. For our drills where everyone's doing something, we make sure that everyone has a ball. I don't want kids standing around goofing off. We've got to keep them moving and focused. And making sure that everyone has a ball makes that happen. We'll usually do a couple of the short drills and then we move to longer drills. The longer drills use a greater part of the field and then the last part is scrimmaging, followed by the last run. And I'll explain why we do that. Kids love to scrimmage, so knowing that it's coming keeps them moving up front. We try to have all drills focused on something they will actually do during a game and they can use that skill during a game. I found a lot of drills don't relate at all to gameplay, so keeping them highly focused is important. I know what we're going to do before I arrive. There's always a plan in place and the kids know it. Because of this, they're more engaged and they're happier to be there. As I said, everyone gets a ball so that they're constantly moving. As we go to larger drills where multiple kids are playing, I will set them up into groups so that you're either playing the drill or getting set up for the next drill, and maybe a couple seconds in between to catch their breath. Again, you've got to keep them moving throughout the entire practice session. One of my favorite drills is a game that requires thinking and moving. It's a simple game, and everyone stands in a circle. We usually limit it to around 8 kids. We do this for soccer, but it works for basketball, volleyball, and probably some other sports. The idea is that you have to pass the ball from one of the kids to another kid, and you can't pass it back to the person who sent it to you. But before you do, you have to call out their name. Now, this seems simple, yet it's hard. Everyone seems to wait till they get the ball to react. And the goal here is to get you to think ahead. Know what you're going to do before you do it. Same thing applies on the field. Before you receive a kick on the field, know what you're going to do with that ball next. How often in life do we have systems in place before events happen, so when the time comes, we don't need to think, but to act? As they get this down, we add complexity. Having to move to a new spot in the circle, maybe adding a second ball. On some of the teams, the kids may not know each other, and this also helps them to learn the names of the other players. The drill is a perfect example of stacking skills with one activity. Where else in life can you practice and accomplish multiple goals by stacking activities together? When we do drills, we've thought through them. They have a purpose, and I share it with the kids so that they understand. Communicate, communicate, communicate. It's a central theme. We also create some simple statements to keep kids engaged and understanding the game. Our practice drills are the actual movements we'll do in games. 2 examples that we use are passing and pressure. If you don't have the ball and you're not passing, then you shouldn't just be standing there watching. You need to create pressure on the other team. That means you're pulling people away to open up space, or you're getting open to receive a ball. It's amazing how all the kids want to play in the center of the field. A lot of times we'll mark off the center of the field and force them to play to the sides. Another one we use is kick and crash. Most shots on goal don't make it. And if you follow the ball instead of admiring it, you have a better chance for a second shot on goal. Same is true in basketball. Don't just stand there, get to moving. We also have a bunch of set plays that we use. These are counterintuitive. You'll notice when play stops and the ref blows the whistle, everyone drops their shoulders and relaxes. We do the opposite. The moment play stops, we go into quick action mode to take advantage of that momentary lapse in attention on the other team. In soccer, it's the throw-in, kickoff after goals, and at the beginning of play, corner kicks, goalie kicks, and punts. It amazes me how many times when the goalie has the ball, everyone turns around, takes their time, and is facing the wrong direction. We, on the other hand, are constantly attacking and catching them off guard. Depending on the age level and experience, it's not hard to pick up goals because of mistakes. Also, if everyone's playing by accepted norms and you're playing outside of that, you catch people off guard. That's why I think it's important for kids to play multiple sports so they can bring experience and methods from other sports into the one they are playing. For these set plays, we make it clear to the kids who does what, how, and when. We assign people to particular tasks or positions to particular tasks. We show them on paper and on the field. Kids don't connect the dots, and you physically have to show them. We adults may not be much different. Once everyone knows what they're supposed to do, we drill it constantly. And then we follow up during scrimmages and games to ensure they're following the system. Because everyone knows what's supposed to happen, they can execute without thinking. One example of this is the kickoff. Rather than the relaxed style of getting started, we almost use a football-like attack. Everyone moves in a fast motion on the touch of the ball. If we have the kick, our goal is to have a shot on goal in the first 30 seconds of the game. It sets the mental level on our side and helps to take the wind out of the sails on the other side. We teach the kids to watch and read the players to see where they're going to go before they go there, because you will naturally mimic what you're about to do. The sudden action also throws off players, and it gives us a slight advantage to our side. For every set play we have, a few set routines, and they execute much like a playbook in football. In spite of this, I still see hesitation and waiting. They think instead of execute. So we just keep drilling and we keep talking through it. Also, if you video, you can show them after the fact what actually happened. It's surprising what shows up on video that we missed during the game. We end every practice with a final run. Depending on the age, we increase the distance. And the reason we do it is to prepare for the last 2 minutes of the game. When you're tired and hot and you've been playing hard for the entire game, it's great to be prepared and conditioned for those final runs that we're going to need. We track the leading and trailing numbers for the team, so kids are focused on pushing their fastest players forward and pulling up the slowest. It puts pressure on both ends of the spectrum. And then we always end with a snack, because they leave happy, it's great customer service, and when they leave on a positive note, regardless of how practice went, they always are looking forward to coming back. And let's face it, everyone loves snack, including us adults. For game day, we have routines. The kids are taught from the moment you walk on the field, you're playing a mindset game with the other team. They're watching you and sizing you up, so make sure that they think you're better than you are. Our warm-ups are designed to show that. Also, as part of our warm-ups, we run by the spectator side for high fives from the parents to pump up the kids. We also have the kids work on a cheer. It's partly to bring them together as a team, but it's also to disrupt the last-minute messages from the other team's coach, as half their players are watching us because of the sudden loudness and camaraderie of our team. The coach shouldn't need to direct warm-ups. The kids should know what to do and automatically go do it. You've got to create the muscle memory and the execution so they do things without thinking. On game day, my role is to watch the bigger picture of the field. I rely on the players to tell me what they're seeing and how to adjust. They can't see the big holes that I do, and I can't see the small ones that they do. Before we start, and while they're watching warm-ups, we're also watching to see which players do we need to be careful of And during gameplay, we're looking for the holes and where their weaknesses are. Because of the conversations, they learn to adjust on the fly, and they don't necessarily need me to direct them. We give them the freedom to make choices. And since they know what to do on set plays, it allows them to focus on the other times. It's showing them respect for their thoughts, giving them responsibility to manage the field, and also allowing them to think for themselves, to practice grace under fire, and to learn to play for something bigger than themselves. Sometimes in a sport, you end up with a position that may take a lot of blame. Goalies can easily take that position. And the last thing you need is for your team to be mad at the goalie and the goalie to not have confidence. We have a simple plan in place. 10 people on the field had to fail before it's the goalie's fault. The offense didn't keep the ball on the offensive side of the field, and defense let them through. Before you're allowed to blame the goalie, you need to take responsibility that you failed at your position. It's done wonders for morale, and it also helps everyone understand their responsibility and how it all connects together. I want to share an example of grace that I remember one time from the end of a season when we had an additional tournament that we attended. It was a 2x2, which meant that we played one team and the other two teams played each other. The winners then played the winners and the losers then played the losers. As we watched the first two teams play, it was clear that one team was better than the other. The score was something like 12-1, and they just kept scoring and rubbing it in. We were up next, and we played the other team, while the first two teams that had just played watched us play. Now, our level of play against this other team was a step up from that previous game. It was a hard-fought match between the two of us, and we lost 1-0. They caught us out of position and off guard at one moment and scored. This meant we were going to play the team that had just lost the match by a massive score. They'd been watching us play at a much higher level. I think you can imagine how those parents and kids felt knowing that they now had to play us. This is where grace comes in. If you remember, we've got 25 kids on the team. 80% of them scored a goal, even though half played defense. What do? We changed it up. We knew we were going to win. So we put a lot of the kids who didn't have as much playing time on the field. The rules were simple. Let's set up the kids who haven't scored this season to score this game. Offense played defense, defense played offense, and a couple of kids who didn't score at all that season had the glory of being able to do so. By moving positions around, kids learn what struggles the other positions have and how they can better pass and set them up. We did have one kid who was playing to score his own goals for his own glory, and one of the other kids came up and said, yank him off the field. You see, it works. They learn to play for each other. More importantly, about halfway through the game, a parent from the other team came over to our side of the field and approached me. Now, this isn't something that usually happens. It's probably frowned upon. And he said, I saw what you did. Thank you. Thank you for allowing our kids some dignity. He goes, we all know you're going to win, but at least you did it with style. And at this point in the game, we were still pretty close in score because everyone was outside of their comfort zone. The coach of the other team had similar words at the end. We modeled grace. We also helped our kids who are not as advanced get a chance to score goals while showing respect to the other team. Yeah, we won by a decent margin, and it's not the first time we would win by a large margin and the other team would thank us for playing them. Throughout this game, our kids were actually giving the other team tips. Respect is just bigger than for your team. It's not unusual for us to win by large margins and the other team to leave smiling because they were treated well. We built a culture for our team and we exemplified it. We showed them how to do it, and all of our actions were in alignment with our words. And for a lot of the kids, it's a very different experience when they play for us than it is when they play on other teams. And they truly enjoy it. We've had some times where other kids have come to join us from other schools or other places, and they're always amazed. They didn't even think something like this could be possible. I also talk to the parents about their role, which is to support their kids, not to coach and berate them. My job is coach. We teach our parents a simple saying for when the kid comes off the field. All you need to do is say, I love to watch you play, because that is what they need to hear. I mentioned at the beginning about a surprise twist. I just want you to know, I've never played sports other than gym class. I've never been on an organized team. I don't watch sports except for maybe the Super Bowl. I don't understand all the rules and all the plays. So I had to learn this to coach the kids. All I had to do was stay one step ahead and surround myself with assistant coaches who knew the game. They were the ones who did the finer skills training. Because I was an outsider, I could relate to the kids on their own level because I was learning and teaching at the same rate they were. I was exploiting opportunities that I saw as an outsider that were unconventional for the insiders. Most coaches coach the way their coach did when they were in some sport, and to a standard that may not be appropriate for the kids that they're coaching. They forget the little stuff, and they don't focus on mindset. They don't always show respect for their players because they're too busy yelling at them. So, a question to you. What's something in life you want to do and you haven't done before? I hope this encourages you to step out of your comfort zone and try something new. There's also another thing that I wanted to share, especially as the kids got older. In the school that I was coaching for, they didn't have the money for a soccer field. So when we did our practices, we were just on a grass field that we could find somewhere. We didn't actually practice on a real soccer field. And this was true for most of the time that I did coaching. We'd have to simulate a field. We'd have to simulate the goals. We'd have to simulate the lines and do our best to teach them how they were going to react when they were on a real field. Now, most of our competitors all came from schools that had one, if not more, soccer fields. So we were playing against kids who had a significant advantage against us. But that did not stop us from success and from winning. Don't let the fact that you don't have something prevent you from the success that you choose. So, to recap the lessons, practice GRRR in your life. Respond with grace, take responsibility, be respectful, and live for something bigger than yourself. Find the keys to the big things that will give you success in life, and then create systems to ensure they happen. You can do that with your health, your wealth, and other parts of your life. Over-communicate and ensure that everyone knows why you're doing something. They may not like it, but at least they understand. Create simple sayings and quotes to remind you of what you need to do. Show up and make yourself a little bit better every day. Win or learn, failure doesn't exist. There's a lot of little things that I didn't cover, and I'm happy to answer your questions. It's Rocky@richersoul.com. We did tell a story to the kids. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's how you go from not knowing exactly what you're doing to building a team and having a winning, successful season. Let's make youth sports fun and rewarding and be far more valuable at building great character and life traits. If you enjoyed the episode, please do share it with your coaches, your kids, and other parents. Let's change the way we behave around sports and make it more worthwhile. Thank you for listening and have an abundant week.